Hello and welcome to episode 9 of the Cow's Den podcast. I am Josh, and with me today is Matt. So, what's up,
El
bro?
Puerino.
We are short Brian again today. He's having some scheduling issues, but he should be back next episode. But as of today, well, as usual, we talk comics, pop culture, stuff like that. Um, we don't have the fringe science stuff today because of Brian not being here, but I think we'll be all right. So I'm gonna start it off. Normally I talk comic books, but I gotta start it off with the finale of Invincible season 1.
Choo choo.
Whoo man. I've been talking up this
Spoilers ahead.
show. Oh yes, there's gonna be plenty of spoilers. So if you have not watched the final episode, and I'm gonna talk the comics. So if you still not read the comics, you might want to skip ahead or go watch the final episode before you listen to this episode. But dude, Robert Kirkman put out a tweet saying, even if you know what's coming, it's going to be shocking. And he was 100% true. I just read those books and damn, it still got me. Because I mean, again, I'm going to talk spoilers, so I'll just come out with it. What happens is um, Nolan Grayson, Mark Grayson's father, he says that he's this alien who's come to help Earth, but in fact, he's an alien who's come to prepare Earth to be taken over. Of course, Mark grew up on Earth. He was born there. That's his people. That's his life. So Nolan comes to Mark and he's like, "I need you to help me. We're going to prepare Earth to be taken over by the Viltrumite Empire." And Mark's like, "Well, fuck you. These are my people. I'm not just going to let you kill them." He's like, "What if they resist? What if they don't want to do it?" He says, "That's why we're here. We're here to talk them out of it. We're here to make sure they understand that they need to comply, basically." And him and Nolan and Mark get on this epic fight. And this was the kind of thing where even in the comics, it took 2 issues to go through this fight. It was issues 11 and 12, and it took 2 issues. Like the first issue was Nolan explaining everything, and then they start fighting, and the second issue is like all about their fight, and it was just intense. But there are moments in the show, specifically the train scene, that were not in the book at all. There's that scene was not in the book at all. And the
But
train
it was
scene,
amazing.
the train scene, to explain it, is that Nolan's trying to show Mark how insignificant life on Earth is, how insignificant humans are compared to them, compared to the grand scheme of things. Mark's just doesn't want to hear it. So one of the things he does is he beats the shit out of Mark, grabs him by the back of his head, holds him up in front of this train. He says, maybe now you'll see, or something like that. I don't remember exactly the quote, but just holds him straight up. And because they're both superhuman, that train just hits them and just plows right through them. And you get a full front shot of hundreds of people just getting splattered all over Mark. Like, oh, it was nuts. It was intense.
And the more he struggled, it seemed like the more blood and death that
Yeah.
brought his
Like the more
way.
he was like, oh shit, he kind of tried to
Yeah.
move and it just killed more people.
Yeah.
Dude, it was, and it was great because it starts with that, and then it kind of, like, after the fight, and I mean, again,
Oh,
spoilers, Nolan finally kind of has a
I'll
cracking moment. He
I'll still
bolts out
have
of
you,
there.
Dad. I'll still
Right.
have you.
Right. And if I'm being totally honest, the one thing I will say, is that the comic, it almost felt like more of a shock, that you were like, "Oh shit, Nolan was a bad guy the whole time." I mean, yeah, you saw him kill the team, but you didn't know why. And in the show, I felt like they spent more time trying to make Nolan be like, "Oh, maybe what I did was wrong, or maybe I shouldn't," or kind of starting to question himself. Whereas in the book, when he fights Mark, he's ready to kill him, and then it's that one thing that Mark says, that "I'll still have you, Dad," that makes him go, and just bolt out of there. But it was good because then it still kind of gave you a little bit afterwards. One of the things mentioned recently, I saw an article for online, was that Invincible is changing the game in one aspect. Normally animated shows don't go past a half an hour, and this one is actually an hour long episode. It's like 40 something minutes, but it's supposed to be an hour long episode. And in doing that, I feel like they cover so much more ground. I like the fact that they did that fight, and then they gave you a little bit of context afterwards. Still, they kind of toned it back down. They gave you, where how beat the fuck up Mark
Context.
got. Yes, context. Yeah,
Well,
of course.
well, and also the whole news report. I loved that. Like you could hear everything going on while you're flying through all what's the aftermath of where everybody's at. But the
Right,
news
right.
report of how devastated Chicago is and how devastated the world is, and they don't know what to do.
Yep, and that was again one thing mentioned in the comics. Nolan's like, "Look, one punch. I punched you one time, and we took out thousands of people. Like that's how insignificant they are." Um, but it was, gosh, it was so good. I can't get over how good that show is in general, but that finale was just amazing.
I'd have to
Um,
say that it's between right now as far as new materials, new TV shows, new comic book shows. It's between that and The Boys for me, as
right,
far as
both
best
Amazon
original.
too.
Right. Well, best original. It's not the big DC. It's not the big
Exactly.
Marvel.
Yeah,
And I think both of them are just great right now.
and again, this article I was reading about talking about how they changed the game was also talking about how, yeah, The Boys was on Amazon, and yeah, people tend to be like, "Oh, well, this is just crazy, just like The Boys," but it's not. This
Oh
one
no,
handles
no,
stuff very differently
no.
than The Boys does. It's not as constantly dark and like evil as The Boys feels like, um, but it makes it that much more intense when shit does go down. Um, it has been renewed for season 2 and 3.
Fuck
So if
yeah.
so if you have Amazon Prime, definitely check
Or
it out. If
Battle
you
Beast.
Battle Beast is my personal favorite character on the show or on the comic, which I don't want to spoil too much, but he has a pretty epic arc. Depending on how far they get along on the story, God, and that's the thing too, man. If they even remotely follow the comics, I know Kirkman has a history of being wishy-washy on following the comics, but if they remotely follow the comics, you're in for an amazing journey. Uh, but
So
yeah,
can I'm gonna
yeah,
chime in a little bit on that.
yeah, yeah.
So while I agree with where you're going with that, I also think that you're referencing obviously The Walking Dead, and the thing with The Walking Dead is that it's not Kirkman has a say in it, but it's really Gable.
I think
Sta
it's Gamble.
I can always forget his name, but and AMC
Right.
and the showrunner. So like I do agree. I think one of the big differences that's going to help it stay more true to the comic is the fact that it is animated.
Right.
Um,
Seth Rogen, Evan Goldberg.
yeah, I mean, so like I have, and I'm not taking anything away from The Walking Dead, and we're going to talk about that later.
Yeah,
But
yeah.
I have much higher hopes for it staying as close to that because you don't have to deal with live action people. If a person leaves, they can replace them with a very similar
Very
voice.
similar voice. Yeah, and it
Um,
won't feel so
you know,
different. Yeah.
yeah, i.e., fucking Carl. But
Yeah.
so I do see where you're going with that, but I'm much more.
Well, and again,
Uh,
with it being Amazon, and like I said, Seth Rogen, Evan Goldberg are producing it. I don't know
yeah,
if I don't know how much that changes things in way of Kirkman having creative control or just in
I think
general.
I think he
Yeah.
does have a little bit more in this. So um, let's hope it stays the same because it's man, it is so good, so good.
So to sidetrack a little bit for anybody who can see, I know a lot of you are just gonna be listening right now, but my lovely wife created the first prototype of the Cow Stand T-shirt, and love it. I love it. It was kind of a birthday gift to me, and she nailed it. It was cool. She just kind of threw the logo on a shirt, but it looks really good, and I'm really happy with it. If anybody's listening and they are interested, we've been talking about possibly making some stickers, and I mean we could work on some shirts if it's something that we could figure out. But if you're interested in some merch, if you're digging the show and you're interested in some merch, let us know. Feel free to contact or comment or whatever. Yeah, we'll get it going. So I do want to touch back on comics a little bit because I do tend to talk about comics, but I feel like lately I've been kind of straying because I keep getting distracted by freaking Robert Kirkman. Um,
That's a easy distraction,
it
man.
is, man. I'm Loving it. Anyway, so recently, let's see here. I had a couple comics I want to talk about. So recently, Keanu Reeves came out with a comic called Berserker.
God, I wish I had one of those.
Issue one came out a few weeks ago, I think a month ago. Issue two just came out this past week. This is issue two, and it's a continuation of the story. I'm going to spoil a little bit, Matt. I don't know how much you plan to read it or when you plan to read it or whatever, but so the first
Wait for
issue
the
is really
show,
just
man.
right. The first issue is really just about him. He's like working for this agency, government agency, and he just rolls through. They're trying to get this guy. He just rolls in there, all freaking superhuman, indestructible, and just starts killing everybody. But you don't really know anything about him. The second issue kind of delves into his origin when he was born. He was born like 30,000 years ago. And his tribe was dying, so his parents asked the gods for help, and it looks like one of the gods banged out his mom, and that's where he came from. At least that's the way it looks in the comic, man. But I I I enjoy the story because it's weird that it's like not complicated. Not it's kind of a simple story, kind of a plain story, but at the same time it's told well enough. It's told well enough that I'm sorry, I can hear something going on in the background there. I was just getting a little distracted there. um it's told well enough that it
Girls.
works. It's told well enough that it works. So Matt Kind, I'm not 100% sure how to pronounce his name. It's Kindt. I don't think I've ever actually heard it pronounced, but let me see here. It looks like kind, but with a T at the end. Anyway, he's a seems like a pretty good writer. He's writing the Bad Idea story ENIAC. He also wrote, I think, Whalesville is one of the Bad Idea stories. He's a good writer, so it makes it to where it's like, even though it's this crazy action story, the with kind of a bland story in the actual story part of it, it's told really well and it's very interesting. And yes, I've heard that it got optioned. I'm not sure if it's Netflix. I think it was Netflix who actually bought it, but they like have already like Keanu wants to make an animated series and a movie, and he wants to star in it and all this and that. So hopefully it gets going. Hopefully something cool comes about it because it's an awesome story. Definitely recommend checking it out. Berserker, Brzrkr. If you haven't checked it out. The other one, I am a big what was the other one I read? Oh, the Batman Fortnite. So DC started last couple weeks ago doing the Batman Fortnite story, and as cheesy as it sounds, as like I made a comment on Twitter about, man, I enjoyed this more than I thought I would, and one of the writers actually responded to me saying, "Oh, I'm glad you had such faith in us." And I'm sitting here like, I mean, it's not that I didn't have faith in you; it's that I feel like it's such a divisive thing that if no matter who had written it, if Stan Lee had written it, Grant Morrison, Frank Miller, one of those guys had written it, I still would have said I was shocked at how much I liked it because it's the idea that it's Batman in Fortnite in a comic book. You can't help but be a little bit weary of how it's going to turn out. But it's been surprisingly good. Issue one was him, first jumping into the Fortnite area. Issue two plays out like the movie Memento. You remember Memento, Matt?
Oh yeah.
Issue two, Batman wakes up, has no memory of why he's there, and he's left himself a bunch of clues, being like, "Go here, do this, do that. This is what's going on." And he's trying to decipher what the whole place is, why there's a storm, why he just keeps dying and waking back up. But the crazy thing is, he only gets 22 minutes to kind of figure out what's going on, and so it's over and over and over again about him trying to figure out what's going on. So kind of a Memento meets Edge of Tomorrow, that movie with Tom Cruise, where he dies over and over and over again. It's good though. Surprising, like I said, surprisingly good. Surprisingly good for being Batman Fortnite. I can't help but be like, man, it's surprisingly entertaining.
Yeah.
Um,
Yeah.
see here. The only other thing I wanted to bring up is I'm a big James Tynion fan. He's the Batman, Something's Killing Children, Department of Truth. I talk about him all the freaking time. He's one of my favorite writers right now. And he had a book come out called Wind. WYND. This is book one of the first 5 issues right here that I'm holding up. If you can't see it, that's what I'm holding up. Um, issue 6, which starts book 2, just came out this past week. This is more James Tynion usually does horror themed comics, very mature type comics. He does do Batman, but he also it's Something's Killing Children. It's Department of Truth is just kind of weird and crazy. Um, and he usually does those weird, crazy horror type comics. This one, however, is more of a young adult fantasy comic, and it's probably teen, I would say. But it's brighter colors. It's a different environment. It's a different thing. The artwork in it is beautiful. Um, but it to me it shows that the writer at Tynan is a very versatile writer. He doesn't just write horror stuff. He's good at other stuff as well. It's kind of like Kirkman. Kirkman, you kind of expect The Walking Dead, and then he puts out something like Invincible or something, and it's like a superhero thing, completely opposite end, but it's still just great. Um, so yeah, I mean, I'm not comparing Win to Invincible. Don't get me wrong, but it's a really good book. Definitely recommend checking out. They're starting book 2 with issue 6 right now. Um, and then the other thing was just that I don't know if you know who Tom Taylor is. He's a comic book writer. He just has done the Deceased books. They're like the Marvel zombies, but for DC. He started taking over Nightwing, and I'm not going to go too far into that because I'll talk about that more
Man, that's
next
a
time.
cool cover.
Dude,
What
it's this is issue 78. It's surprisingly went up in price because they introduced a new character in it. So it's like $20 right now if you can find it on eBay, 20, $25, something like that.
Nightwing 78?
78. He started on 78. Dude, I got to show you
That
who
cover, man.
dude, he's got so 79 is getting a second print and it is one of the coolest covers I've ever seen. Um but like I said, I don't want to go too far into it, but it's he kind of brings Nightwing back to being like just Nightwing again. He's not all Agent Grayson or like Rick Grayson or whatever. He's back to just being good old Nightwing. And I mean, that may sound kind of lame in a way, but
No, I
it's
love
not.
I love Nightwing. He's always
Right.
been one of my
It,
favorite, most
well,
unappreciated
and
characters.
to me, like that's what kind of pulled me away was when they started being like, "Oh, I think he got shot." I don't remember exactly how it went down, but I think he got shot, so he had his memory wiped or whatever. So he called himself Rick Grayson, and I don't know, man. I wasn't digging all that, and I wasn't really into the whole Agent Grayson thing either. Like, just bring it back to Nightwing. Anyway, real quick here, there's a 79 second print. It's
Dude,
all the Robins throughout the years, kind of I just thought
that
that
is
was
so
cool.
cool.
It's so 79 second print. It's not out yet. But I was like, dude, I don't even care that it's a second print. That cover's fucking unbelievable. I love it.
Right, I would
Uh,
buy at least two to display one of them, man. Like
I pre-ordered two because I was like,
I do.
no.
I do what Josh does with some of my comics, where I have displayed up on the walls. Man, I love, and it's not even the value of the pieces that I have up because a lot of them
Exactly.
aren't worth anything. Like this,
Exactly.
you guys probably can't see it, but there's an Avengers. So what? Avengers 8. So there's an 8-issue Avengers comic books short that I have up on my wall, and they're not worth anything. They're like 20 years old, but like they spell out Avengers, and they have every single character on there and
Right.
on each cover. And it's just, I love good covers. Doesn't matter what the cost is on them. Doesn't matter if they're super valuable.
I bought an extra one of this Chadwick Boseman tribute cover because I just fucking love
That's
the
so
cover.
cool.
It's
Yeah.
Spawn, but it's Chadwick, and I think that's so cool. And
Yeah.
I thought it was so cool of Todd to do like a tribute cover. There's people who are gonna say, "Oh, well, I was just trying to get him some," but I don't care. I think it was awesome tribute. I think it was really
Yep.
cool.
Well, if you think about I'm not taking away from any other African American comic book characters, so please don't give me any stuff about it. But like, think about some of the most iconic ones.
he, Black
You've
Panther's
got
probably the
Black
most
Panther,
iconic one.
but then you got Spawn.
Oh,
So
that
like
yeah, right, right.
Spawn
Al
was
Simmons.
yeah.
Yeah,
I mean, he that was huge in comics. I remember watching the show on HBO.
HBO. Yeah,
He was actually, and going back and thinking about this, Like, I'm not taking Blankman into account. That doesn't fucking count. But thinking about, Spawn, Blade, those were kind of the
You
first.
brought the nunchucks.
but Spawn and Blade, those were the first real
Blade, yeah.
introductions, at least for me, when I was a young child, into African American comic book heroes. So like Black Panther's up there, but it's really cool seeing Spawn become Chadwick. That's so cool,
right? And
or Chadwick becomes Spawn.
People, and that's where like I loved Black Panther. So again, please don't take anything away from that. But it's like that's where I couldn't help but think it got overhyped because of all this hype of it being like, oh, it's a it's an African American superhero, and I couldn't help but be like, yeah, but where's Spawn, Blade,
Yeah,
where do you guys like? I mean, it's not like it's don't get me wrong, like I said,
I think
absolutely
it's
amazing movie. I wasn't trying to put it down.
I think that was more about it being the first MCU gigantic,
no, that's true. That's true.
Thing. But yeah, I love it. That
man,
I wish I would have loved to see.
Was perfect.
Yeah,
it was.
I would have
He was
loved to have seen him as them do a cover for Blade. Like, could you imagine him in that black fucking trench coat, man, with the sunglasses on? Like, oh, dude, I love that stuff. And I grew up, everybody points to Iron Man being the big comic book movie, but Blade is the one that really kicked it back off.
And what people don't seem to remember is that Iron Man was them taking a chance, because they had sold Spider-Man and they had sold X-Men and Fantastic Four, and so they were sitting here like, we don't know who to use anymore because we took all of our big characters and sold them. So if we're going to try to do this, we have to use lesser known characters like Iron Man and Captain America and all that. And like they were big characters, but not as big as like Spider-Man or the X-Men. And so it's like people tend to think that, oh, Iron Man's, and yeah, I get what you're saying. Like Iron Man kicked off the superhero movie thing, but yeah, people do tend to
I say Blade. Right. I still go back to Blade. Like, if you look, like there was a lull and there wasn't very much going on comic book movies.
The 80s and early 90s. Like, I mean, there was Punisher, and the movies they put out were not
garbage. They were garbage
movies.
No.
Yes.
And then I remember when Blade
it was like
came
a stigma.
out. And a lot of people forget that. And like, I'm not taking any away from Chad's portrayal of Black Panther. It was awesome, but Wesley Snipes' portrayal as Blade, that really kicked this all back off, where they sat there and go, man,
and we could make money off that. Like,
oh yeah,
for that time. And I mean, despite all the shit that happened behind the scenes and him being like a prima donna or whatever,
I still go to the worst fight sequence ever, though, in cinema history. Isn't it number 3 where they're fighting in front of the lights?
I think it's 2 actually, which sucks because two was actually
good one.
Really good, but the
1 and 2 were
back
great.
then just weren't quite caught up to it. So
for listeners who have never seen the Blade trilogy or seen the Blade movies, watch Blade 2. The fight scene in front of the lights,
Guillermo del Toro.
So bad.
Yeah, it's Guillermo del Toro, and it's considered the best of the Blade movies because of Guillermo del Toro. But dude, that fight scene,
it's so bad.
And I mean, even the first one, when he like cuts Steven Dorff in half, and then half his body's all floating up, and you see the blood in between all.
Yeah, I would rather see that a million times, though. Besides the elongated bodies of those two fighting in front of the lights. Oh God, it's so bad.
All right, so to circle back though, oh shoot, what was I getting? I don't know where we trailed off there a little bit.
Just a little bit.
But yeah, we were talking about comics and how some of them may not be worth a lot, but they're just awesome display because of the artwork.
We were on Nightwing. That's where we were at.
Nightwing, Nightwing. Well, and I think that was. Oh, I was gonna say that was it for comics for me, but then again, it's like I've been distracted with my comics lately. I've been trying to. I've been trying to put. I do my comic reviews on the Cows Den website, but recently I got distracted reading Invincible. I started it and I just could not stop reading it. And
then you got into what?
We've had these compendiums for The Walking Dead because my wife is super into them, and so I just decided, you know what, screw it, I'll pick them up and I'll just start reading it. And once again, dude, Kirkman, I cannot put it down.
Look, so don't get me wrong, I love Zack Snyder and I love God dang it, Spawn's writer,
Todd McFarlane. Yeah.
Todd. But I hold pact that Kirkman is the best new talent in the past 20 years. maybe 10-15 years. But like, I mean, his writing is just amazing.
It, he
Um,
knows how to build a world. He knows how to build a world. You know, you'll start with something small, but then it grows and it grows and it grows to this awesome overall story. I've gotten through the first compendium, which is a I don't know how many issues because the way it's designed in these books, they don't do it by issue. They do it by like book one, book two, book three. Um, but I don't know exactly what issue I'm on. But I finished the first compendium, and as far as I got was them getting to the prison. They hold up in the prison for a while, then they run up to Woodbury and meet the governor, which is, and then they come back, and then the governor comes to attack them, and I've gotten to
so
the governor attacking them and them leaving.
so there's a story about how initially Kirkman and man, the first producer who did the first season, who ended up suing
Yeah,
AMC because he got kicked off, but
don't remember him.
they initially had taken this to HBO. And for anybody who hasn't read the comic but is a fan of the show, I highly recommend you reading the comic, because if you think that the show is brutal, could you imagine this being on HBO? You know, they are the ones that made Game of Thrones, and imagine how brutal this world would really be.
If they
I
could
don't
put
know
that kind of
what,
darkness to it,
and
give it that
I
kind
don't
of
know, if it would have been able to go on as long because of how brutal it would have been. You know,
well,
I don't know if it would have gotten the base.
I I
As much
don't
as I
know.
hate the
Well,
show
no,
fans,
and
you know.
okay, so I'm gonna spoil some of this again. So I think, dude, when in Game of Thrones, when Sansa got raped, that was like one of the lowest rated episodes of the show because like and I hate to be like this, but like people don't like being shown that stuff. And it's like I get it, but at the same time, it really gives that intensity to the show and it shows you what Sansa went
It,
through.
well, and it gives you the real life. Like,
Right.
unfortunately, bad shit happens in real
Right.
life. And
Right.
so, little side note: if you want to see the most unsettling movie ever made, it's called Irreversible. Um,
I don't know. I've
yeah,
heard what's it called? A Norwegian film or something like that. Where
yeah, that's bad too. Where the son, oh
yeah,
yeah, that one's bad too.
yeah.
But like, Irreversible has the girl from the Matrix movies, the one
Trinity?
who no, the one who's the girlfriend of the guy who's holding the keymaster, the one who says, "I can see your lipstick." He goes, "Lipstick? I don't have any lipstick." She goes, "No,
Oh,
on your
not on your
dick."
face. Yeah, yeah.
Yeah,
Yeah.
that Monica Bellucci. Oh my god, it's just a very, very intense movie. But yeah, we go back like I don't know if it would have survived on
Right, that's what I
HBO
was getting at though, is
because
like I don't know if there's the Michonne scene, and I don't want to say too much about it, but the Michonne scene, like, I don't know, man. After that, I don't know. I don't know.
the
People might have
Lori, the Lori and
Lori scene,
Judy
yeah,
scene. I mean,
for sure.
holy crap! Like, and like, um, you know, I'm a diehard fan of the Walking Dead comic and of the show, and I'm actually ecstatic the fact that, you know, you got on in Invincible,
Right,
and that it's brought you to the Walking Dead. I got on in the Walking Dead, and it brought me to Invincible.
right.
But
Well, you've
like,
always been more of the zombie fan, and I've
yeah,
been more of the superhero fan,
so,
you know. So
side note, I was thinking about this morning because I was going through, you know, just thinking about different zombie stuff. You want to know what the first R-rated movie me and you ever saw was? I bet you don't remember.
first R-rated movie that we ever saw.
Hmm.
I mean, I'm
Yeah,
just gonna throw it out and say Night of the Living Dead, since we're talking
no,
zombies. Dawn of the
from
Dead.
dusk from dusk till dawn.
Oh yeah,
I
that's
remember
vampires
dad.
technically, but you know.
Yeah, no, I know. I was thinking, I was like, what is the first? Because I was thinking about how this would work on HBO and
Mm.
everything. But I was like, you know, what was the first thing? And I was like, oh, it was. I remember when Dad was watching it downstairs, and we came downstairs, and Mom was like, no, don't, you know, don't show me. He's like, nah, come on, it's just a little movie. What a movie to be introduced to.
Oh my
So,
gosh, dude.
but
Yeah, yeah.
yeah, going back to the Walking Dead, man. Like, I I I sometimes really hate the show fans because they just cause massive problems.
Yeah.
They bitch about Glenn's death. They bitch about Negan being Negan. But like they don't understand like the absolute brutality that was the comic.
Right.
And I'm glad that you're starting to see that
Hmm.
and just see how absolutely nuts it is.
So to put it into context, I watched the first season of the show, and during the second season, I was kind of like, this is getting kind of boring, so I just stopped. And that was just at that time. I wasn't really into it. The show was good, but for some reason, it just couldn't keep my attention. And dude, the book is just I can't stop reading it. I just can't. Like every day, I kind of wake up and I'm like, all right, when do I get to read a little bit more? When do I get to read a little bit more? It's just it's weird because until they met the governor and until they like all that went down, not a whole lot happened. It felt like, okay, just somebody died from a zombie bite. Oh no, somebody else died from a zombie bite. Oh, but at the same time, nothing was really happening that was super crazy, but I still couldn't seem to stop. I couldn't seem to put it down. Like you said, it's Kirkman's writing. I don't know what it
Yeah.
is, but it
Oh yeah,
works.
and I think that he in The Walking Dead, and they do a good job of it on the show, is they run this story of, okay, we can't fight the zombies except we have guns. We have to deal with them, as a group, and then it
Right.
slowly, okay, we're good. We do a team of three. Okay, we can do it with hand to hand combat with swords and whatnot, and
Mhm.
then eventually it leads into, okay, the real enemy are other humans.
Mhm.
And the first introduction of really how evil the
Like
world could
another
be is the
well,
governor.
another group
Um,
really. Like they found stragglers and kind of made
yep.
their group a little bit bigger over time. And when they first got to the prison, there was a couple prisoners there, and one of them like chopped the head off of the two little girls, and that was a point
Mm-hmm.
where I was like, holy shit! But then they took him out right away, and it was over. So it's
Yeah.
like this was the first time that you met another group of people, and they didn't give up. Like they weren't just
No.
a quick fix. It was, oof,
Oh.
yep.
Well, and everybody loves Negan, and I talked to Josh off screen. Everybody loves Negan because of the comedy that he brings. But like the show fans felt like he was too brutal, and I was like, you have no
Yeah,
idea. The
if you say
governor
it's too
was 10
brutal,
times right.
right?
Like, don't get me wrong, Negan was brutal, but like he was methodical. The
Well,
governor was insane. Like
and I think
he
I think they wanted to test the waters, and then when they had got to the point where Negan was showing up, they finally were like, you know what, fuck it, we're gonna go all out. We're just gonna do it. We're just gonna go all out.
yeah.
And yeah, I watched. So I came back because of that, because I knew who Negan was. I had randomly read a couple of issues around the time that he had showed up, and I was like, man, yeah, he's a badass. And so I hopped back in once I heard Jeffrey Dean Morgan. So I hopped back on the show just to watch him show up. And dude, in my opinion, I wasn't let down. I thought it was
No.
freaking awesome. I thought it was as
Yeah.
intense as you wanted it to be. It was as uncomfortable as you wanted it to be, and it left a fucking mark on you, which is what it's supposed
Right.
to do.
Yeah, and that's exactly the way the comic is.
Right.
It seems like every time they have to fight, especially like big groups, not just the zombie hordes, but whenever they have to fight these big groups, there are deaths, and in real life, if this were to happen,
Mhm. There would be
not
death.
everybody's going to survive.
Right, right.
And I mean, you could look at each step along the way, and it's like, dude, the governor, the big death, the biggest death I took away outside of the Michonne rape, the biggest death was Judith and Lori. I mean,
Mhm.
that fucking was
Mm.
brutal.
But again, that's what I
Uh,
thought was cool was like it was one of the governor's people took like shot them and killed them,
yeah,
and then she sat here like, I didn't know she had a fucking baby. You didn't tell me she had a fucking baby. You made me kill a fucking baby. And he was like, just shut the fuck up, and turned around and walk away, and she just fucking popped him. I was just like,
yeah,
okay, yep, okay. It also showed that yes, the governor was crazy, but not all of his people were crazy.
yep.
That there were even a few of them that was like, whoa, dude, that was a little too far. Like that was a little too much. So it was
I can't wait. I can't wait till you keep going. Like, I mean, there are.
incredible writing. I
Oh
love it.
yeah,
I love
yeah.
it. And I'm definitely going to keep going. So, but one thing before we switch over to you, man, I'm sorry I've been kind of hogging the
Oh
time here.
no.
I mentioned James Tynion in his book Wind. He's also, I told you, he's mostly a horror writer. I forgot all about this. I just wanted to mention it real quick. He has a new horror book coming out. It's called Nice House on the Lake. It's a DC book, but it's a DC Black Label book, so it's going to be one of their heavier hitter, like, more mature books. But it's called Nice House on the Lake. Comes out next month. Final order cutoff, which is the final day that you can pre-order them for shops, is tomorrow actually. So I don't know if you can get. I don't know how soon we're going to put this up, but just if you are interested in James Tynion, if you've read any of his books, this one he even came out and said he was writing this back at the time when he was first putting out Something's Killing the Children, and that is, in my opinion, one of the best horror books out there. Just nowadays, I mean, like obviously Walking Dead's its own thing. Walking Dead, I almost don't even consider it horror though.
No,
It's more
survival,
intense. Yeah.
I guess, or apocalyptic. I'd say it's
Apocalyptic. I don't know.
yeah.
I feel like it's not really like
It's its
there's
own
not
thing.
it
It's its
really
own thing,
is. It really
and yeah,
is.
because
But
I
this
mean, there's nothing else out like it.
but this yeah, Nice House on the Lake. And Matt, I mean, I know you've kind of are back and forth as far as which comics. You're a little more particular, let me say that, as far as which
Yeah,
comics you're grabbing nowadays. But yeah, dude, I'm excited for it. He's a good writer. If you get a chance, check it out. Gonna switch over to Matt. I know we started with the Kirkman stuff, but was there anything else you were wanting to talk about today, man?
yeah. I was going to talk about Mighty Ducks Game Changers, but I'm actually going to save that to the next episode. So next episode, I'm going to talk about Mighty Ducks Game Changers because I also want to give Josh a chance to check that out because I know
Yeah,
he's
I've only got about 2 episodes done, and they're on episode
yeah,
6. I think they just did
7. They just released 7, and
So
it's really good. And I'll go into it next episode. But also, I'm going to talk about next episode. I found this out. They released Star Wars Bad Batch.
yeah,
I want to check that out. I
like
watched like the first couple
sequel
minutes.
to
Clone Wars.
Clone Wars, right?
Yeah. And
Right.
I love the Clone Wars. And here's the thing is,
I didn't get
okay, I'm
into
going
it
to talk
enough,
about it
so
next
yeah.
time. I'm going to talk about it next time. But that's what I'm talking about next time. Star Wars, Bad Batch, and Mighty Ducks Game Changers. But me and Josh have been talking kind of throughout the week just how awesome Kirkman is. So I'm gonna go.
If Robert Kirkman ever hears us talking, ever hears our podcast, I think Kirkman, you should throw a little stuff our way. We'll be glad to be sponsored by you. Okay, we'll be glad to.
Hell, I'd be
we'll talk you
glad
up
if
into
you. Yeah, I'll be glad if you retweet it.
Hell,
You know,
shit. Get him to come on the show though. No,
yeah, that'd be awesome. But so I'm going to talk about Walking Dead. That I
yeah.
went back and was watching season 10, and I've given the show a little bit of grief because ever since Carl died on the show, I kind of have not checked out. I'm still watching every episode, but I'm not as invested. So I've gone back and watched season 10, and it's actually really good. The whole Negan Beta dynamic. I love Ryan Durst.
Ryan Dunn's the jackass who died.
Yeah.
Which is sad.
So
R.I.P. I don't mean it as he's a jackass who died. I mean he was on the show Jackass and he died.
But their whole dynamic is really good. I love Ryan as Beta. I thought he did a great job. And side note, they released an album of his character's work. I think it's Nightcall or Nightwolf.
So is Beta in the comic? Is he a...
Oh yeah.
Okay.
Oh yeah.
See,
I think he's
I'm excited to get into all this, man. I'm so mad I didn't.
So a lot of people didn't care for the Whisperers and the Whisperer War in the comic. I actually really liked it. I mean, I won't tell you. I can't spoil it for you, but I loved it. It's in my opinion.
Talk some spoilers. If there's something big that happens, just try not to, because I want to try to keep it as fresh as I can.
So do you know what the term the Pike scene means?
No, not at all.
Okay, so I'm not going to say anything about that, but let's just say that the Whisperers destroy 2 communities, maybe it's just 1, but they destroy a couple of the communities, 1 or 2 whole communities. It's massive, but it's once again, it's brutal. And it's really cool. And one of my favorite characters is Dwight, and the whole Dwight Sherry dynamic and the whole Dwight Sherry the Saviors, Dwight Sherry the Saviors during the Whisperers War. Like it's really cool. I didn't like how they just kind of with the Saviors on the show. I felt like if they had done kind of similar to what the comic was doing, it would have been better, but still season 10 is really good. So the grief that I've given it, it's all based on when Carl died. Like it just totally killed it for me.
I wasn't watching, like I said, I've only watched a little bit of it, but I read all the stuff about it. And to me, that was a whole thing of the studio just needs to stay the fuck out of it. Like
Yeah.
that was one of those situations where
Well, they started to do a formula and it had worked where, at the last episode of the mid-season break, they would kill a reasonably big character.
right.
And I just, you talk to the kid who plays him,
Mhm.
and
I'm blanking on
gosh
his
dang
name right
it.
now.
Yeah. But and he it wasn't like he wanted to leave. Yeah, he was going to college, but he still wanted to do the show.
Right.
And so it was just, and that kind of gave, in my opinion, that gave the actor who played Rick a reason to leave, because what's the point?
Mhm.
The whole show is based on him and his son.
Mhm.
And then it gave Kirkman a way out of the comic. I really believe that because of the timing on everything with that, I
Right.
really feel like that ended the comic, that ended Rick's run, and it's unfortunate. But so definitely, give The Walking Dead a chance. If you stopped at a certain point, go back and watch it and catch up. It's really good.
That's me right here, and I'm going to, man. I plan to.
Now, but going off of that, anybody who has listened knows that I am a very big fan of Fear the Walking Dead. I didn't really care for World Beyond. We'll see how it goes. But Fear and the Walking Dead had a situation like that where they killed a couple people where it was like, eh. So, but
Well,
it
and
has picked.
I'm sorry. I've heard that show started kind of okay and then just gradually got better and better and better. So that's the way I've heard it.
Okay, so it started, it got good, and then they killed Nick. And
Oh,
when they
okay.
killed Nick, I was like, yeah, okay, and then they announced that they were bringing a couple characters over, Morgan and Dwight. I was like, that's a horrible idea.
hmm
But it's paid off great. These last two episodes, so episode 11 and 12, 12 airs tomorrow. You might be hearing this. Might air today, depending on when we get this posted. But
Should have it up on Saturday, which means it'll be tomorrow on Sunday.
yeah.
Yeah.
So spoilers ahead. I do have AMC Plus, so I'm able to watch the episodes early. But episode 11, you get to meet the Doomsday Cult. And it's this cult of people that basically believes that the world is dead. We need to leave it behind. And they've kind of built their subterranean little cult. And they're the group that's been messing with Morgan's group and some of the other two groups, Sherry's group, and oh man, I can't remember the other guy's name, who now took over for Joy. But they've been messing with them. They are the ones that blew up Gastown. And so you finally get to meet him. And there's this character, his name's Wes. He's new to this season. He finds out that his brother is part of this group and that he's basically been brainwashed. And you still don't know what, like, the real purpose of this group, like what they're planning, like, kind of what they're planning to do, but what their philosophy is. They have this zombie that is attached to a tree, and there's like leaves and stuff growing around it and everything. And whenever they have new people come in, they're like, hey, what do you see when you see this? And so you don't really know what the philosophy is, but you find out that they're taking like walkers and they're grinding them up into the soil
Oh
because it helps
shit.
fertilize the soil, and they're growing crops underground because of using these guys.
That's cool.
But they're the new big bad guy on the block. Wes ends up having to kill his brother in order to get the other members of this group out because of where they're at. they're underground. So it's Victor. That's the third team I was trying to think of. Third
Okay.
group. Victor runs the third group. But the big thing, man, is this upcoming episode. And please, if you're watching this show, do not turn this off. It's a big spoiler. And it's probably, man, it's up there with Carl dying as far as like big shock and like really, really, those deaths that you talked about that really hit home, that strike, the Glenn death, the Herschel death on the show. Those two deaths on the show really struck home. This death, it really fucked me up. And it is, I was kind of iffy as I was watching the show.
What's his name? What's his name on
the episode?
Opie.
Yeah. Opie on
Sons of Anarchy.
Yeah.
Spoiler. Sorry.
Yeah. Well, that show's been out forever. But okay, so last time I talked about this, about how Morgan and Gracie were having a baby. And Gracie's like 9 months pregnant at this point. So the episode it's kind of like a psychedelic trip. Gracie comes back to their community, and you get to see old man Morgan, and she gets to meet her child. But Morgan's kind of tripping out because he's like, I buried you, yada, yada, yada. And you get to see Grace interact with her child. You get to see Dwight and Sherry back together, and they have 2 kids. John is the boy, and I can't remember the girl's name. But that was so cool. But seeing old man Morgan was awesome. Just imagine Morgan with white hair and white beard. It's really cool. But so what it is that you find out is that this group, I'm going to call them the Doomsday Cult. They had, what I gather is that they had set like a trap, a bomb on a car, and Morgan and Gracie, for some reason, were close to it. It went off, and Gracie's actually unconscious, and she's having these hallucinations about her daughter. And so everything's, going all crazy, and you're getting glimpses of what's going on in real time, where Morgan's trying to hide her, and there's like 3 or 4 of the members of the Doomsday Cult that are trying to find them. Well, kind of backtrack. Morgan at the beginning of this season had killed a bounty hunter, and oh my God, that was awesome. The bounty hunter is amazing. He's paid by this other group to basically hunt down people and kill them, and he cuts their heads off with this gigantic axe. But he has this key that you find out that this Doomsday Cult had actually contracted him to get this key. Now, I think it's to a nuke. I think it's to or some kind of weapon of mass destruction, because this Doomsday Cult,
some kind, yeah.
Well, and this Doomsday Cult is all about that getting rid of surface life and living underground, because they're self-sustaining underground. And so they're trying to get this key. And Morgan, after killing the bounty hunter, has this key. And so they eventually get to where Morgan and Gracie are. Gracie's in a wheelbarrow, semi-conscious, and Morgan has to decide. Yeah. Well, and the visuals on this, it's like a purple hue, and it's crazy. The visuals on this is really cool.
Trip, huh?
It's like an acid trip.
Yeah.
So Morgan has to fight them, and he ends up killing 3 of them, and stabbing the lead, not the sub leader. He's not the leader of the cult, but the sub leader of the cult, in like the shoulder, and he runs off. And so they're like, okay, the baby's coming. We gotta try to deliver the baby. As soon as he does that, the guy comes back with his car and crashes into the barn and pulls a gun out. And so at this point, Gracie has become totally conscious, and the guy's like, give me your key. And he points the gun at Gracie's stomach. And it's like, give me the key now or I'll kill your baby. Going back to kind of the whole Lori situation, right? So Morgan's like, I can't give you this key. And Gracie's like, no, give him the key. He's already lost. This baby is the future. I've seen it. She's starting to talk about like what she was hallucinating about. I've seen it. This is the future. So Morgan reluctantly gives him the key. The guy leaves, and Gracie starts going into
labor or whatever, right?
labor, right?
Yeah.
Baby comes out, and it's all smiles and greats and everything. The baby's born dead.
Oh,
And
like
Morgan, you see
stillborn.
Morgan.
Oh.
Yeah. Well, I mean, but it's not, well, I don't know if it's considered stillborn, like, cause it's 9 months old.
Right.
And like,
Well,
you see Morgan trying to bring it back to life, and Gracie and him coming to the realization that Gracie's hallucination was false and that it was just a dream. So they just lost their child, and then realizing that they gave up this key that nobody knows what it goes to, but that this doomsday cult had been
now
chasing
has.
them for, now has. But
Ugh.
the death of Morgan's child and Gracie's child, it hit me hard,
Yeah.
man, because it's like, this whole season's been about Morgan getting his group back from Joy's group, and getting Gracie back. It's getting my child back, getting Gracie back, and trying to build a peaceful life. And to have it come to just an abrupt ending where not only did you lose the key, but you lost your child.
Too. Yeah.
It is so
Brutal.
heartbreaking, because like,
Yeah.
the show leads you to believe that actually she's going to die in birth. And like, she believes that through the hallucination, she believes that she's going to die in childbirth, but that her child will live on. And so like, coming to the realization that oh man, it's so brutal. So if you get a chance, I honestly, at the beginning of the episode, I didn't really care for it. Like, I was just kind of like, what's going on? But
by the end,
as it progressed,
yeah.
and I was like, oh man, we're gonna lose Gracie. And then it's like, no, we lost a fucking child. Oh
yeah.
my god,
baby. Yeah.
Yeah, it was a baby.
Dude, and that's always the kind of thing that hits differently once you become a parent too,
Yeah.
Like, well, and I mean, not to be a spoiler, but something's killing the children. You can expect children to die. That's one thing that Tynan has done. And dude, every time he does, you're like, oh my god.
Yeah. Well, right, and like, just the universes.
But again, with Walking Dead, yeah, the way
Kirkman has made.
Yep.
With the Walking Dead, Fear the Walking Dead.
Yep. So this is going to sound like kind of a noob question, and I'm sorry, but again, I have not watched Walking Dead in years. So is Fear the Walking Dead just, I mean, does it have anything to do with the books? Does it have anything to do with the original? I don't know anything about it. I've never watched it.
This is my theory. I think that so now there's 3 shows. There's Fear the Walking Dead, there's The Walking Dead, and then there is World Beyond.
Okay.
I think that eventually Fear the Walking Dead and World Beyond are going to merge.
Okay.
Or the World Beyond is just going to be a little whatever show. I think that Fear the Walking Dead and what Morgan is building is the Western Front, the Western Alliance. Remember issue 193, the last issue, they talk, you have Eugene building the train tracks that are connecting the Commonwealth and the Western Alliance.
Okay.
And so in the comic book, you never see the Western Alliance. Right. It's presumably, on the West Coast or Northwest Coast, and that they're combining the 2 communities between the Commonwealth, which is based in Ohio, Alexandria, which is based in Virginia, which is still up and running, and this Western Alliance. I hope and pray that's what they're doing, but it really seems, because they are out west, they are west of the Rocky Mountains. No, they're west of the Rocky Mountains, because they had to fly over the Rocky Mountains at one point. It was crazy. Okay. So I think
a little rockier than this.
That John Denver's full of shit, man. So I really think that Fear the Walking Dead is going to be the story of the Western Alliance that Kirkman never got to tell, because you could tell by him mentioning that and the whole railroad in the last issue that his plans after the Commonwealth were to build this Western Alliance, and about these 2 gigantic, the biggest communities left presumably in the United States, between Alexandria and the Commonwealth, are kind of considered the Eastern Alliance, I guess, and whatever's out west. And that was Eugene's biggest part in the last issue, was he was finishing the last tracks of this alliance. Okay. And so I really think that's going to be it. I hope it is. I really hope it's not World Beyond that's doing that, but it's kind of leading towards they might be.
Okay.
But I think that eventually you're going to have the World Beyond. This is my theory. The World Beyond and Fear the Walking Dead are going to join together, and Rick's movies are going to be based off of the World Beyond universe, and that he's going to be the one that's actually running the Western Alliance with Morgan. It would end up being him and Morgan creating this Western Alliance that eventually merges with the Commonwealth and Alexandria, and that's how you get them all back together. Okay. But that's a dream theory, world. It's theory, not gonna, it's not gonna happen that way. But I really think that at the minimum, I think Fear the Walking Dead is going to be this Western Alliance.
Okay.
That's personal opinion. But I think that'd be probably the best bet. And who knows, because they keep saying that World Beyond, you're going to have an appearance of Rick Grimes. You've got the 3 Rick Grimes movies coming out that they've started pre-producing on the first one, I think. So that the group that the 3-ring group that took Rick from the last episode that he was in, he got taken away by this group with 3 rings on it. They appear in the World Beyond.
Okay.
And they're out west. They're like northwest, like Oregon and Washington kind of thing. So they're definitely going to go into the Western Alliance. I don't know which way it's going to go, but like it's almost a guarantee that that's at least where they're going with that stuff. And that's what the frustrating thing is with where The Walking Dead is that they only have 1 more season left, and they're going to be doing the Commonwealth. I don't know how they're going to end the show with the worlds merging if they're still developing the worlds out west. So it's going to be kind of a time crap shoot on what exactly is going to happen. But
well, yeah, hopefully when it's all done, they find a way to make sure it all wraps up well. I think that's the biggest thing.
Well, and with all this Kirkman and Walking Dead talk, I did bring a couple comics today because me and Josh have talked.
Here's Negan. Speaking of all the artwork that we like, that we put up just because we like, you got that Here's Negan in the background there.
Yeah. Awesome. Well, and for those who might not be watching but are listening, I've got a couple of my two of my favorite comic book covers that Kirkman was involved in. Outside of my favorite is still issue 97, 98, 99, 100 of they all form
Negan, right? Lucille.
Yeah. Well, it's different covers, and then 100 has Lucille and Negan on it, and it's like this red and yellow, like, oh, it's so cool.
It's the build up to Negan,
Yeah, but I showed Josh off screen, and my second favorite, outside of those 4, my second favorite cover is issue 92, because I absolutely love Jesus's character.
Yeah.
I think they did him dirty on the show, the way he died and everything, but I absolutely love Jesus. So issue 92, for those who can't see, you got a picture of Jesus with a little halo around his head, and then as soon as you go up,
be Jesus.
Yeah, as soon as he goes up, he's got his left hand up, and then his right hand has a 6-shooter in it. Yeah. So he's this peaceful Jesus guy. He's all about, like, he's like a Zen kind of person, in the show,
kind of like Jesus. Yeah,
in the comic. But then he's got his little 6-shooter, kind of points to, I'm peaceful, but I am not one to be fucked with. Yeah. And I mean, and anybody who knows the show and knows the comic, like, he is very, very a very good fighter. And then my third favorite cover is issue 192.
Carl, right?
Yeah, Carl. You've got Carl with the gun that he ended up killing his dad with. Spoilers,
and I read the ending. I read 192 and 193. And I remember just being like, oh fuck, okay.
Yeah.
Well, yeah.
Yep. Well, and we circle back to he will never admit it. Kirkman will never admit it, but I really feel like the timing of, Carl dying, Andrew Lincoln leaving, and the end of the comic book series, he'll sit there. he'll sit there and say, "Oh, I don't want to get derivative and all that stuff." No, it gave each one of you an out.
So I'm gonna be a bragger over here. When I met him at San Diego Comic-Con, and when I did, I asked him why he ended it, and he said that he goes, I mentioned, I think that you had told me this, that that he was saying that, oh, the comic could go to 300 issues or whatever,
Mm-hmm.
and I said something to him, and I was like, so why'd you end it? I heard, you could possibly take it at 300. And his response was, oh, I just like surprises. I like to surprise people, so I just felt like surprise. It's over, and I was just kind of like,
I'm not buying it. I'm not
right,
buying it.
right.
Because like I said, I feel, whether he admits it or not, that he was not happy about them killing Carl.
Right.
I feel like he was done with the show. He was done with dealing with that shit. And he felt like, what, it gives me a chance to move on to something else. And I because it was just because, like, you go, the last, like, couple of issues were rushed. I mean,
Mhm.
and not,
A
you
little
could
bit,
tell,
yeah,
right,
yeah.
but you could tell that, like, you jump I think another 8 years.
Right.
It's just like, and then you drop this little tidbit about the Western Alliance. You were going to tell this you were going to at least tell this massive story about how you meet this other gigantic community that rebuilds the United States, that
Well,
rebuilds society.
and he even came
And
out with a year later, came out with Negan Lives. And I think even that was kind of like, oh shit, I forgot to tell everybody what happened with Negan. And like,
yeah,
I think he didn't. Yeah, I think he was just like, oh, we'll cut it off. And then he was like, oh shit, maybe I should wrap this up, and maybe I should talk about this or whatever.
yeah.
Yeah.
And I point to that, like, that's and I know I take the Walking Dead stuff to heart because I love the show and I love the comic
I
books
was
so
just
much.
thinking about how we whenever it's me and you, we tend to talk a lot about Robert Kirkman and his
Yeah,
writing and stuff.
yeah. Well, and I take that stuff to heart with
Mhm.
Kirkman and with The Walking Dead, to where, I'm gonna be a broken record. Everybody's like, "Oh, the show died when they killed
Glenn.
Glenn, or
Mhm.
this point and that point." I'm like, no, man, it was going fine until they made that decision to
To kill
fucking kill
Carl.
Carl. I
Yeah,
mean,
which
it made no sense.
I mean,
It's the
again, if you
and
look at it, you look at that issue 192, that's certainly not how the fucking way it goes.
No, and I get that they're taking some of Carl's stuff and giving it to Judith, and then they took some of the stuff and gave it to, um, oh my gosh, the adopted son of
Which that's a
Carol.
huge change right there.
Um,
Judith dies in in the book, but they
oh
keep her
yeah,
around in the show.
I think that goes back to, I think that it was, I think that
They didn't want
if
to
you
kill her
look,
baby.
well, if you look at one of the more not liked episodes is when they killed Carol's daughter.
Oh,
When it comes up that she was dead, and in the barn
Sophia?
in season 2, Sophia, which is another turn away from the comic.
Right. She's in,
But I
yeah,
think that
I'm still reading it, and her and Carl are still, well, no, because
she
he just
makes it
got
to
out of
the
the
end.
prison. I haven't
She
seen
makes
that.
it to
Yeah,
the end
yeah.
because I can't remember if it's her or if it's the girl, the oh my gosh,
Oh, they were in the barn.
Alpha.
So there's
So
one, sorry, go ahead. Good.
I can't remember if it's Sophia or if it's Alpha's daughter that ends up married to Carl. One of
Oh
them ends
shit.
up married to Carl and having the kid, and then one of them is like his best friend. I can't remember. I mix those two up all the time, but yeah. Go ahead.
No, I was just gonna say there is one thing I'm so glad they changed from the book to the show. I hate bald Glenn. I hate it. I think it's
Yeah,
ugly. I don't know. I'm looking at him like, who the fuck? That doesn't look like Glenn. Like, get the fuck out of here.
yeah.
And it's
Well, and
something
so
little and stupid, but I just still was like, I don't like it. I don't like bald Glenn.
well, and you can see parts of Tyrese and
Dude,
Daryl. You can,
Tyrese.
yeah, you
Tyrese
can
died too in
see,
the book. He got
yeah,
the governor fucking cut his head off, man.
yeah. Well, and that's kind of changed a little bit in the show. That's I mean,
Michonne, so far, if I'm
it's
being honest,
Herschel.
Michonne is my favorite fucking character in the
I
book because
Why do you think
she's
okay, Josh,
unbelievably
what
badass.
when every year that you go to Comic-Con, what do I ask you? See if you can
Oh,
find how much
17.
issue
I think
17,
17. When she
17.
first
I think
shows
it is.
up, I think it's
How
17.
much that is. because
Yeah.
like I remember the first time I asked you that, and you're like, "Oh, well, I'll see," and then it was like $400 or $500 or something
$500,
like that.
yeah.
And I was like, "No, man, I'm just not willing to pay that much for it."
Right.
Dude, she is fucking
Oh
awesome,
yeah,
man.
no, she's
Um,
badass. And that's like
and
me
I
with
actually,
Invincible, the first appearance Battle Beast. That's what I wanted was first
yeah.
appearance Battle Beast because he's my favorite character in Invincible.
Well, and one thing that I like that they changed in the show, I
Mhm.
actually like that she got with Rick. Um,
Okay.
I actually like that because they you want to know, well, do you know who Rick is with in the comic compared to the show?
As far as like after Lori dies,
Yeah.
um,
It's oh my gosh. It's she dies at the end of season 3. And oh my gosh. I'm drawing a brain fart. Holy cow.
not
Um
the well, no Maggie, no, because
no,
Maggie
it's
dies.
it's oh my gosh, it's
That's
gonna
with
drive me crazy. I'm
Sophia's
looking
mom.
it up because it's yeah, it's gonna drive me crazy.
No,
But she
Maggie's with
dies.
Glenn. Maggie's the one with Glenn, right?
Yeah.
Yeah, they got
Um
married and shit in the
oh
jail.
yeah.
That was cool. And that was
Well,
nice.
and
And oh, I just it's one of those things where knowing that Glenn's gonna die, I can't help but be like, ooh, this is building up and getting crazy.
well, the other thing is how much they played off of Shane. They made Shane much bigger on the show. Like he's big in the comic, but he's not around very long.
So, and it's
Um
funny because I was sitting here reading it, and I go, yeah, I haven't even. I was talking to my wife, and I was like, yeah, I haven't even seen.
Andrea.
But oh
Jesus.
yeah, 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 yeah. Okay,
That's gonna
she's like
drive
the
me crazy.
sharpshooter in the book,
Oh,
right? She's
oh
the
yeah.
one of the
And
daughters. She got
she
her fucking mouth cut all Joker
mm,
style. That was after the
mhm.
one of the prisoners. He cut those
Mhm.
girls' heads off, and then got her right in the fucking Joker style. Ooh,
She ends up with Rick.
okay,
And I remember when she
and
died,
that's
man, that
cool.
was rough too.
That's
So
cool.
there's a lot
Uh,
of changes, but overall I think they do a decent job. But dude, yeah, so yeah, that's the struggle is that some of this stuff is coming.
right.
But like I'll tell you, it's different. It's
Yeah.
far different. And that's
Right.
why I don't think that if you watch the show and you've never read the comics, I don't think it spoils too much
Mhm.
because the show is different.
Mhm.
There are a lot of similarities, obviously, but nothing could prepare you. You could watch the whole show, and nothing could have prepared you for the Michonne, for the
Mm.
Lori and Judas scene,
Mhm.
like it. Yeah, so
Mhm. It was good, and even just the governor, the fight between the governor, when he comes back, dude, what Michonne straight staples his dick, like hammers his dick to
yep,
the ground.
yep.
Ugh,
I mean,
chops his
it's
arm off, plucks his eyeball out with a spoon, and then
yep,
just kicks him over. So she kicks him over at that point, which means his dick ripped out of that fucking hole, like
yeah.
so. Oof.
It's yeah,
Oh,
and
and even that, he's got his like daughter chained up in his house, and the weirdest part, one of the weirdest scenes,
the
he
heads.
plucks out her teeth and then
Yeah.
gives her. He's like, "Give Daddy a kiss," and I was like, "Oh, that's your daughter, and she's a zombie.
Mhm.
What are you doing?"
Oh
Ugh.
yeah. I mean, he was,
Uh,
and he was truly crazy, and like
yeah.
I don't get me wrong, I love Negan. Negan's one of my favorite characters, but the governor, that whole sequence really set the
That
tone for the
was, dude.
comic.
That fucking.
Um,
Oh yeah.
yeah.
That took me. Um,
Mhm.
Yeah, it was good, man. I do think
So yeah,
we need to probably start wrapping up here. I think we've
yeah.
been talking a little longer than expected, but
Well, and so next week, like I said, I'm going to talk about Mighty
Mighty
Ducks, the
Ducks,
Game Changers.
dude. And I've watched the first
Um,
couple. It's been good from what I've watched. I'm trying to watch with my son because it's more of a kids ish show.
yeah.
So I was trying to watch it with him, but I'm just gonna watch them. I don't care.
I will say one thing about Mighty Ducks real quick is that
Yeah.
the new episode 7 has one of my favorite parts from the original movie, the soft hands sequence, where they're doing the eggs.
Oh yeah, yeah,
you
yeah,
know
yeah, yeah.
Guess what they used, and I'll give them props. I loved it. So
Their
what do you
phones,
think has
so they don't
there
break
you
it.
go,
Oh
has the
really?
most value? Yeah.
Ah,
And what has the most value to kids these days is their
and
cell
something that
phones.
you gotta be very careful to keep it.
Yeah.
Yeah, that's
I thought that was
smart.
smart. I
That
thought
is
that was really
smart.
smart. And so like I
we've been, me and my kids have been watching like Sandlot, Goonies, and Mighty Ducks a lot here recently, but like it's just got me built back into that
Oh
nostalgia,
yeah,
and I thought they did a really good job. So
it's good. I
we'll
heard the
talk
whole.
about
Well,
that
I
next
heard
time.
some of the. Yeah, we'll talk about it next time.
Mhm.
But yeah, guys. I mean, I think that'll about do it. Shoot, anything? I mean, we we can't help but talk about Robert Kirkman, and that's kind of my fault. I know you've been
Ah,
into him for quite some time, but dude, I'm just hating myself for never reading and stuff earlier. Like I'm hating myself for it. Now I know
oh, tags.
he's got about 3 or 4 stories that he's doing right now. He's got one called Firepower. It's been pretty good so far. He's got one called Nope, totally blanking. No idea. But I know Firepower is one he's working on right now, and I am totally blanking on the other ones. I know he's got a couple stories going on right now, doesn't he?
Well, and here's the thing: is that I'm fine being called a Kirkman fanboy, because if I'm going to be called a fanboy of anything, I'm fine being called a Kirkman fanboy. He, in
He's
my opinion, is one of the best
excellent writer.
new age writers.
Hmm.
Um,
Because
period.
his stories are original. For one
Yeah,
thing, he can
very
take
good.
he can take something as bland as a zombie apocalypse that's happened 1,000 times before and make it interesting, or as
Right, like
bland as a superhero story that's happened 1,000 times before and make it fucking interesting.
right. Think about that. Like, I mean, like,
He takes
it's
an
all been done
unoriginal
before.
idea and makes it original.
Yeah, and to this day, he still has never said what started the Walking Dead virus, like what started the zombie apocalypse. And
And I love that. And I love
yeah,
that.
yeah, he's joked about it being an alien seed, pod seed, or whatever. But like, I love that. I love that. And the whole, and the other original thing that he took, sorry, is when a person dies, they become a zombie. They're
Right.
already
It has
infected.
nothing to do with the actual bite. You are
Mhm.
already infected. You are already have it. Like I love
Well,
the
if you
fact
get
that
bit, you can turn quicker, but
but
still.
but really it's like the bite isn't what turns you. It's the fact that the
Mhm.
bite kills you and therefore when
Yeah.
you die, you turn. Like I love
Yep.
that. I love it. That's such an original concept
Idea.
in the world of
Mhm.
an unoriginal idea. Like I said, zombie apocalypse has been done 1,000 times, but he makes it original.
Well, and then dad dynamic of Invincible.
Right. Right.
That's an original
Right.
idea, in my
It's
opinion,
like
inside of a.
if suddenly Jarrell showed up and was like, "Yeah, you weren't supposed to come here and save the humans. You were supposed to come here and fucking own them." Like
Yeah.
that would have been insane.
Yeah.
Um,
Or
but he does it.
If Bruce Wayne turned bad and Damien, had to fight
Had
him.
to fight
It's
him.
just
Yeah. Yeah.
you see the common things of bigger comics, but he takes those and makes it his own, and
The
they're
idea
original.
is essentially Superman. Is essentially just because it's like he's from an alien planet. The alien
Mhm.
planet. I don't want to say. I don't want to spoil too much, um, but he's from an alien planet. He's sent there to Earth. Well, technically, he's not sent there. He was born there. But still, it's got the similarities
Yeah.
of Superman in that aspect. But it's just so originally done. It's so originally. There are characters you would have never thought of. There are planets. It's interplanetary. I need to stop. We need to stop talking.
Yeah,
I
because
could talk for
if you
hours
guys
about
can't tell,
Kirkman.
yeah, we could talk about Kirkman any day. And I, it's funny because before we were doing the show, I was going over with Josh what I was going to talk about, but then he's been really on a Kirkman kick, and I could
I
talk
really
Kirkman
have,
any
man.
day, every
I
day, all day. I
eh,
love everything he
well,
does.
and
Well, most everything he does.
you got to go with Battle Pope. I think that was his first comic was Battle Pope, and I think in Battle Pope here, I think I have it right here. Do I? Where did it go? I had Battle Pope. Oh, here we go. And I think in Battle Pope, in one point, you get your Jesus, who looks like the Jesus you were talking. Look at this Jesus right here.
Yeah,
Look at that
yeah.
Jesus. He's like a, but dude, it's just so crazy. He's such a crazy writer. But
Yeah.
it's so good. He builds the worlds so well, so well. Um, yeah. I think to wrap it up, yeah. Check out Fear the Walking Dead. Check out Walking Dead. Check out Robert Kirkman. Check out Invincible.
Invincible.
Invincible on Amazon Prime. His show is fantastic. If you like the show, check out the books. Um, the only other thing I'm going to try to plug again because I want to see if I can get him to hear me. James Tynan. Nice House on the Left coming out next month. DC Black Label. Pre-order it. Also, as usual, guys, thank you so much for watching, listening, however you view us, listen to us. Thank you so much for checking us out. You could be doing anything with your time. The fact that you're listening to us is very awesome. I really appreciate it. We've gotten still getting people from a couple people from around the world, but most of it is here in the US where we record. But still just unbelievably grateful to you guys. Anybody who's watching, listening, however you do it. Thank you so much. If you ever want to contact us, if you ever want to make a comment, suggestion, email is thecowsintheden.com. Website is just thecowsden.com. For some reason, the email was already taken, which is, whatever. Thecowsden.com has my comic book reviews. I was going to do I might start doing this next episode. I was going to kind of do my selections for upcoming comics for next week, stuff you might like, stuff I'm liking, but just regardless, thank you guys so much for listening. We really appreciate it. And if we can get this getting a little bit bigger, then we might start making some merch. So if you guys want some merch, let me know, because if there's people want it, then we'll start doing it.
And also one last thing, one little plug. I've talked about it a couple times, but eventually I will get my PC up and we will get a YouTube channel going. And eventually, we might switch over to doing a like Twitch stream live kind of thing of us.
We can do that every once in a while too. We could just do like a live episode. What I would like to those is no, like we can just do it the way we're doing it, but also do, like you said, we can do some live episodes. And I don't want to do only live episodes because I do like having some of them pre-recorded. But
absolutely. The podcast is where we're starting. We're going to try to branch out.
We want to expand it a little more. That's the whole thing. Yeah. And especially if you guys want that, maybe we can get a Patreon going to where, if you guys want it, if you guys like us, if you guys like listening to us. I say guys a lot. That's nothing offense to anybody, but it does look like our main demographic is male. I see you ladies out there too, ladies. You non-binaries or trans or whatever.
Hey, no matter what you are, I will tongue punch your fart box.
That sounds disgusting.
With some love.
Tongue punch your fart box. I think that's going to be the title of the episode.
There you go. All right. Hey, thank you so much for listening.
Yes, thank you so much. You guys have a great rest of your weekend or whenever you listen to us. Later.
Adios, muchachos.